Unless $5 million are transferred to the following numbered account in 7 days, I will capsize 5 tankers in the Annex fleet.
Is that is the virus. Leonardo da Vinci.
That's right. Viruses, malware, and regulations, oh my. And got something going wrong with my damn display. The Windows virus, the biggest Windows virus of them all, called Windows Update. Crapping out on me. I'm having a bad day. But all that, we'll talk about that, and viruses and regulations and everything and more coming up in this episode of OT Exposed Raw. So some of you probably noticed the little intro video, right? That was the Leonardo da Vinci virus from the now occult film, the 1995 occult film, Hackers. Because that's kind of how we feel, right? I got the Mortal Kombat shirt on, got Mortal Kombat in back on the video game display because it is kind of Mortal Kombat, right? It's kind of the malware is on the rise and industrial targeting, and now we got the feds come in with regulations, and so it's kind of like Mortal Kombat. Hey, we're back. Look at that. Okay, the show can end now. We're good to go. We've got the display back and everything like that. But I still don't have my neon lights. For some reason, the neon lights back there got crapped out too. I think there was a combination of we had a lightning storm, and it was a combination of lightning storm and the Windows virus or the Windows update. Sorry, that kind of destroyed everything. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. So anyway, let's get before we get started, everybody, we got a special guest today again because Three's Company, right? So let's get our guest or our co-host, Pascal. I don't have anything left to say about him anymore. I've already said all the funny jokes. So let's just get him on.
Welcome. I mean,
what's up? You're no longer in a non-disclosed location.
I think I made it to Hawaii now. So I was just going to say, I thought you were actually helping out the state of Texas by turning off your neon lights. So thank you for that. So everybody else can be cool, right? Because you have to conserve all your energy.
I don't need to preserve energy to be cool because I'm already cool. I'm already too cool.
Hey, let's put that up for debate. But still, it's good to be back. I'm home, and actually on my way home, I was going through the TSA check point, right, for security. I was thinking, what do these guys have to do with pipeline security? But I think we'll get to that in this episode.
Yeah, we will. We'll talk about that because I think a lot of people don't understand why. But before we introduce our special guest, I just want to mention real quick that we have a big event. So we have the big red versus blue sign back there. So here at ThreatGen, we've got a big event coming up in a couple of weeks. We have our big 1.6 update of the ThreatGen Red versus Blue cybersecurity gamification. You can get it on Steam, or if you're looking for the more professional version, educational version, you can also find it here at threatgen.com/red-versus-blue or BS. Blue anyway. So
this is kind of a milestone release, right? From what I understand, it's a lot of things are becoming final. This is it. This is the roadmap. This is what we've been working to for a long time.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately, we've been doing this for about 3 years, and getting to this milestone, this is where we really wanted to get the game from a professional perspective, from a game perspective, a learning perspective. And we got some really big announcements coming up on that in terms of, we got some research projects coming up on gamification. We've just got a lot of stuff coming up soon that's going to be announced, and we're really proud of this. We're really proud of the red versus blue, what has become the cybersecurity gamification. So anyway, everybody check it out. You can get it for Steam on get it $15 on Steam. or for the professional and educational versions, you can get that on our website. So sorry for the shameless plug, but it had to be done. It had to be done because we're proud of it.
Big news. It's big news. It has to be done.
So let's introduce our guests. So I've known our next guest for quite some time. I've worked with them in a past life, back when I used to be a ninja, or a unicorn ninja or something. Now I'm, so please welcome Mr. Glenn Sweeney. And by the way, got to tell you, let me take my banner off there. There we go. It looks better. You look better without a banner.
Better.
So Glenn Sweeney, I like your name because ever since the first time I met you, it sounds like a movie star. It's just like you could be up in headlights. It's like starring Glenn Sweeney.
Anyway, one, right?
Yeah. So Glenn is like a career CISO, not a career CISO because you didn't like start off as a CISO, but
no, work yourself up, right?
You're kind of a CISO for hire now, right?
Correct. Yeah, like a virtual CISO.
Virtual CISO. You look real to me.
Yeah.
So he's a
Sometimes.
CAAS, CISO as a service.
CASS. So a CAS.
CS, yes.
CS.
I can be that too.
CAS.
You gotta have to be when you're a good CISO. You're gonna have to be.
You got to be.
You gotta be, because nobody likes security guys like us.
No, especially the head guy. No, we take the brunt. But anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's get on with real quick. I don't want to listen to you talk about nothing anymore. So let's get on with a couple things. Let's get on with our our early show news before we get into the main topics. And one of the things that I found interesting, and let's just go ahead and bring this up on the screen here. I'm kind of winging it today. Like I said, I'm just not in the mood. So let's
all right, we're starting here.
Yeah, we're starting. And Glenn, I'm going to mute you. What the hell are you doing? God, get your damn
my printer just started
printer
freaking out. Hang on.
Is that a dot matrix?
It is. I think you're probably never going to get hired as a virtual CISO ever again using a damn dot matrix printer.
That's unhackable.
There we go.
All right.
Sorry. Guys.
Okay, let's yeah, exactly. It's it's not hackable. A pen. So let's screwing up my show, dude. You're screwing up my show.
Where were
we screwed that up enough.
Okay.
Yeah. So
go ahead. Go, Clint.
This was a story that's not related to OT, but we have hackers used Slack to break into EA games. And where I found this interesting was they actually used sort of a chat forum, and they used Slack in sort of a services manner. You know how remote services, how they work, where and there's scams that'll come up where they'll call you out of the blue or try to email you and get a hold of you and say, hey, click here and click here and click here. You see all these alerts? That means you've been hacked. And I think that it's some sort of remote service like that. But ultimately it was for some, and then the article was vague, but they used Slack as some sort of service communication, and they got representatives at EA to give them the credentials they needed to get access to computer remotely, etc.
Hold on. There's a little twist to that. They didn't coerce anybody in getting credentials. They bought cookies off of the dark web. There's a big bad dark web again. But they managed to get credentials or a session cookie for $10 or $15 from the dark web, and they used that cookie to log in. Now they were on a Slack session that's normally used for internal communications. That makes it a lot more convincing to have people do stuff for you, right?
Okay, right. Yeah, that's what it was. So they used the purchased credentials to establish validity so that then they can social engineer them in Slack. And so real quick, and I'll get y'all's thoughts on this, but I have my own idea on, granted, again, this has nothing to do with OT, but I have my own thoughts on how this could end up relating to another attack vector. We'll talk more about attack vectors later, but this could end up being something similar to this, could be an attack vector. And this is really kind of related to one of the things we'll talk about with other attack vectors with ransomware. But how do you see this playing out as being another potential attack vector for OT?
I'll let it up to the guest first. But mainly because I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But go ahead, Glenn.
I just want to put Glenn on the spot.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so like a stolen cookie, okay, or they purchased off the dark web for $10 actually. To do that type of attack is that's pretty serious, and I could see that melting into the OT space, or maybe on the corporate side, where they can get access and then access the OT from the corporate side.
Yeah, use it as like a variation on the phishing email scam.
Correct. Correct. Yes. Yes.
And I'm thinking. Go ahead.
I would say, everybody knows Colonial was actually on the corporate side, not the OT side.
Drink.
You just said it.
Oh. It's water, people. It's water. It's just water.
I don't have an alcohol. Although maybe it's Friday. This could be an Irish coffee.
Hey.
Not in a GPA cup because they're too serious for that.
Oh, are you kidding me? Those guys are fun.
But that's my thoughts on it. Anyway.
GPA is my favorite GPA people. All right.
But yeah, that's an excellent point. Like I said,
better stop drinking.
We never stop drinking.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, once you get like an internal Slack communication going like that, it's like the early days, right? When we had PBXs and people internally, if somebody called you and you saw that it was from the IT department or from your boss, that's a whole different conversation, and that's another way you're responding than when you see an external phone number, right? You're more likely to give your credit card numbers and your password to your boss's phone number or the secretary than you are to some guy from India or China or Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was thinking. I was kind of thinking of something like this would be used like with some sort of service ticket. There's a lot of vendors on the OT side that get in remotely to service things. And so if you could convincingly pose as a vendor and, access systems remotely that way, I think that would end up being an attack vector. And so that's where I was seeing this sort of being related. So
yeah, and another interesting piece of it was I believe they use multi-factor. So they
yes.
Yeah, so multi-factor is the best thing in the world, but it can be compromised. And
it's like a straw or a tube, right? Like VPN and multi-factor, if you catch it on the ends where it starts,
right,
then it doesn't. There's.
Well, hold on, we gotta address the most concerning thing about this whole story right now, because you brought it up. You brought up a thought I had on this.
Mm-hmm.
The way they implemented the session cookies is completely wrong. I should not be able to buy a session cookie that's been on the web for a day, 2 days, a week. I don't know how long it's been on there, and then use that. There must be some mechanism in there that says either time related. Every once in a while, you need to refresh that cookie, or it needs to be tied to your IP address or something. So being able to buy a session cookie and use it successfully, even bypassing two-factor authentication, because at that point, once you get your session cookie, that part is already done, right? You've done your verification. Mm-hmm. Being able to use that successfully, I'm going to put the blame on the person who implemented the session verification process within their Slack channel or whatever they used as a client. That's my opinion on this. Apart from that, it's very scary, and it's very convenient if these attackers can just go out to the dark web and they say, okay, we want to attack EA, Rockwell, Siemens, whatever, and you can find these stolen session cookies and just buy them and successfully compromise them.
That is scary. That's very scary.
That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. All right, so
I'll drop the price for you.
Yeah, and so I guess let's talk about attack vectors. So there was a pretty interesting article, and we're not going to cover this in detail, but one of the things, and I'll enlarge the key findings for you if you want, and just because I thought this was a really interesting article. This is from Proofpoint, specifically. The authors were Selena Larson, formerly of Dragos, now works for Proofpoint, Daniel Blackford, and it just says Garrett G. I don't know who that is. G, sorry. But, this is a bunch of different, they're taking an analysis of all the different they're saying that they're tracking the 10 different threat actors, and they're talking about the different attack vectors that they're seeing and what's prevalent. And by the way, if you're interested, and I have been, speaking of Slack, I have been slacking big time on getting the show links and the timestamps on each of them. We're on episode number 5, and I've only done it on number 1. So I promise over the course of the next week, I will go back and make sure that I get all of the show notes, the timestamps, and the links on all those prior shows. Anyway, so what I wanted to make sure, there's the link to this article if you find it interesting and you want to read up on it. We're not going to talk about it in depth, but I believe you guys kind of had something to say about some of these.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Pascal.
I was just going to quickly verify. So you said Selena Larson, formerly Dragos?
Yeah, formerly Dragos.
There's actually people leaving Dragos as well.
Oh, don't go there. Hey, people find other opportunities, and I'd leave ThreatGen if I had the right. Wait, did I just say that? Oh man, I said the quiet part out loud. So, all right. Yes. Anyway, so attack vectors. And so go ahead, you talk.
No, I was going to open up the floor for Glenn, because I know this is dear to his heart, but I looked over them, and there's a couple of there's really good points here, but I think the one that's missing that we should talk about is just your awareness, right?
Yes.
Having people aware of what could go wrong, and this could be used as a checkpoint to it, but I think having the awareness itself should be a key finding as well, or missing the awareness apparently. But go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, so a proper executed, documented security awareness program is critical to this kind of stuff. Phishing, everybody knows, probably listening in, that over 90% of the attacks successful are through phishing attacks. And who clicks on those links? Your users, your weakest link to your business. And not everybody's perfect, because people are going to click on them anyway, just out of curiosity. There's different reasons. Let's see what this will do, and bam, you're owned. But so the security awareness piece is critical, I believe, when it comes to this kind of stuff, because ransomware, it doesn't come directly in through email, but it gets the door open for them to put it out on your network. And it's very easy to do with these users. It's also a cultural change in the business. So you have to have a security-minded culture. It has to come from the top down, from the C level down to the users, on the importance of having the cybersecurity within the company. And it's crucial that they do this training, whether it be through various vendors that do this training for them, whatever solution they have, and then report. And if they fail, they do it again, or however they want to handle it in their business in this training. So that's my 2 cents, and I think that's critical when it's coming to ransomware. Train your users, get them to know what ransomware is. Every month have something in the internet. Maybe have a security blog out there. Do phishing articles. Here's what to look for. Here's certain simple things to look for in an email that probably is a phishing email.
Yep.
And also do rules around, business email compromise, about if you receive an email from the CEO, that's you think is kind of funny. Why is the CEO sending this to me? Obviously, through common sense.
I get emails from the CEO all the time.
Well, you got a rule to go to trash, right? Or spam.
But you're right, though, in general, when it comes to the
So those are not actually from me. So those are coming from the emails are coming from Robert Rhodes masquerading as me. So anything that's offensive comes from Robert.
Anything decent comes from you.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, of course.
I'll remember that. Yeah. Anyway, right. I interrupted you. Continue. So
no, that's
a train of thought.
That's what I've seen in the industries. No matter what industry you're in, oil and gas, OT, bank, financial, retail. People are people. They're going to do what they're going to do. But just get that security awareness out there to your users, and let them know how important it is to watch out for this kind of stuff, because it's getting worse. Bad guys are getting smarter. they're crafting some really, really interesting emails and malware payloads within these that trying to steal your credentials. And once they got your credentials, we saw what happened with the recent hacks, right? They just used them, and bam, here we are.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, yeah, that's how I got my sign hacked. I clicked on the email that said Microsoft needs to update.
I had two serious comments on that as well. So the first one being, you mentioned that doing awareness and putting in there the seriousness and the consequences from it. But in a lot of large OT companies or ICS companies, that's really difficult if you have IT people sitting in some office far away from the business network, right, from the plant network. It's really hard to relay what the consequences could be from them putting on there. But I think somehow you need to make that awareness there, that if you click on this is going to happen, and up to and including a physical harm, the consequences could be grave.
Absolutely. Yeah, you should make an effort to get to every user you can.
Yep.
And also including in your new hire process. When you bring new hires on,
yep,
you need to have that in your orientation, because it just shows that new hire, this company takes their cyber seriously.
Now, a question on that, though, that I've discussed with the customer I was with last week and the week before, is that what would be a good consequence? Let's say you do a phishing campaign and you have a user that just that fails it. What would be a good consequence for a person like that?
Some of these solutions they have out there have automated actions to that. Either retake it. If they fail again, sometimes the manager gets involved. Maybe have a, don't chastise them or anything like that for doing this, but just get them in and say and explain, what's going on and why are you failing this, and help them out, right? So the next time they take it or take another one, that they're aware of, well, if I do this, I'm going to fail, right? It's just like clicking on an email and you get phished. Oh, I failed, right? A real email. The consequences might be a little harsher, but you know what I'm saying.
How about ducking like a bonus or a pay for a repeat offender? Right? With the seriousness behind it, you click the wrong link and here you go. You got an $11 million ransom.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's
some point we got to say enough is enough.
HR. Yeah, that's pretty harsh, but I haven't seen that before. But,
no, I haven't seen it, but I think once these insurance companies stop paying the ransomware basically for these organizations, and something harsh like that, I think is going to happen.
And they are. There's a big change in the cyber market, insurance market right now, related because of all this that's going on.
I am not going to allow a conversation. Look at that. He gave himself a blow. I'm not going to allow conversation about insurance on this episode. Not
okay.
Stricken. All right.
No, we can't go around it anymore. It's going to happen.
I know, but we're not going to talk about it this episode. That'll be another episode.
At least we can do is drink for it. Let's drink.
That's, well, I'm not even putting a banner for insurance. Yeah. Yeah, you said, Pascal, you said earlier, you said far away. That's where Shrek is from. Anyway, and I'm not talking about Brad, and Brad, who I'm talking about. All right. So let's if you want to talk about insurance, let's talk about sort of a version of insurance. Let's talk about regulation a little bit. So TSA they announced that they're now working on their second round of pipeline security regulations. And so, and I've got a lot of things I want to say about this, but first of all, let's talk about the regulations in general. And the TSA regulations, I like better than Biden's executive order, because his 100-day plan. Because first of all, 100-day plan is bullshit. You can't do anything in 100 days. We couldn't do it in 10 years. We're not going to do it in 100 days. And so not only that, is his plan didn't have any teeth to it. It was all voluntary, and it focused pretty much strictly on monitoring, which that's only half the battle, like G.I. Joe says. So in the TSA regulations, they at least the first round, is promoting or at least supporting reporting responsibilities. Yes. There's a mandate to report incidents. And they're also saying that you have to have a certain amount of assessments and gap analysis done and stuff like that. Before, and there's something that's really interesting that I want to comment on, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about why, and Pascal, you brought it up. Let's talk about why TSA is in charge of pipelines.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave this up to you guys, but the only thing I'm gonna say is that when I asked my TSA security officer when I went through the airport, he wasn't aware of any of this. He couldn't tell me what the mandate actually meant.
So
what the hell is going on?
They need better training.
I'm not a career operator in pipelines or anything like that, but so TSA has jurisdiction over pipelines because it's the transportation of hazardous goods, right? So they have jurisdiction. It's a section of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and they have the CFATs, the chemical facility, and whatever. I forget. Once they start talking fat, I get offended. So, it's something about the chemical regulations, and ultimately it's because it's the transportation of petroleum and natural gas, and so that's not very high level, and to my best understanding of why TSA has control over it. But what's interesting is that they said that the second round of regulations will be classified as sensitive. So first of all, good luck with that, because number one, what exactly are you making sensitive? They said that due to the nature of the mitigations, they're going to be a lot more specific about the mitigations, so they're going to be classified as sensitive. Number one, what exactly do you think you're going to put in there that hasn't already? And yeah, by the way, we'll put that. Somebody made a comment, or one of our own people made a comment, but we can go ahead and put the link up to. This is a little different. Okay, yeah, that's better. So those are the actual TSA. That's where the actual guidelines are. And the article that we're talking about is actually here. And the link to that, I don't have a link to it. Sorry, I screwed that up.
It's going to be in the show notes eventually.
Yeah, it will be. So anyway, I don't know what they think that they're classifying, because number one, any mitigations and specific mitigations that they could be putting into the regulations, they're known mitigations, they're known security strategies, they're known controls. So if there's anything that's new that's not available out there, number one, they're literally saying they're going to implement security through obscurity. That's literally what they're saying. If the security mitigations are going to be classified as sensitive, they're going to be careful about releasing those. They are literally implementing a policy of security through obscurity, which just makes me laugh. And not only that, like, it's also sort of like trying to keep the bad guys from getting access to your security plans by not releasing it to the public. Yeah, that didn't work with hacking techniques either. Yeah, I'm looking at you, VHS, 2007, tried to squash my book. There was a particular version, particular group of that. But yeah, I got contacted by government. I got contacted by some vendors. And, if you release this was back in 2007 when I was going to release Hacking SCADA. And they're like, if you do this, blah, 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 blah. But the book got published anyway as a Hacking Exposed title. And now there's tons of publications. It's stupid to think that you're going to keep these exploitation techniques out of the hands of the criminals by trying to keep them from getting out to the public. Same thing with mitigation techniques and all the sensitive stuff. If the bad guys want the information, they're going to get the information. So trying to make this stuff sensitive is stupid and naive. I yield the floor.
You're going to love this one, though. A part of these mandates is to do a self-assessment. And guess what they want you to do with the self-assessment? They want you to email it to them.
Yeah. Yes.
So the directives themselves are
Unencrypted, by the way.
unencrypted. So the
Unless they have
directives themselves,
unless they set up some channel somewhere, but yeah.
yeah, unless
Didn't
I
say
completely
that.
misread that, but they want you to email the results of that. Let that sink in.
So what say you, Mr. Sisso?
Yeah, so this TSA thing, in my opinion, it's a good thing. Okay. They have to start somewhere. And, they do that, was it 30 days? They say you have to have a 30 calendar days to do a detailed gap assessment of your program, cybersecurity program, using the TSA guidelines. Now, that's going to be a little tough. I mean, you could do it, but it takes a lot of resources. A lot of times you would go out and hire a third party to assist you or do it all for you. And then you have a remediation plan that needs to be put in place after that. And you have to have it's a typical, almost like a typical NIST assessment when you go in any corporate. Here's your gaps, here's your maturity scores, etc. And here's what we recommend for remediation. And then you plan it out on your resource timeline. The 30 days is pretty short, in my opinion. I guess it just depends on what size staff you have. And also now they're recommending within 12 hours of identification, you have to report incidents. Now this only covers critical, I think 100, was it, Pascal?
There's 100 identified critical players. On that
so
list.
if it's critical or or LNG, this is what this applies to. And I don't understand that. Why didn't it apply to everybody? Any industrial.
Probably colonial, right? That's the answer to that one.
Yeah, but they all should be following this. I mean, this is basic stuff. You go in, you got to see where your weaknesses are before you can fix them.
But
right?
like you said, you got to start somewhere. And and initially, Colonial was presented as, hey, this is not our problem. This is a privately owned company.
Yes.
So the remaining outside of those 100 are probably still considered you're on your own. You're right. Because you're privately owned. We don't want to dictate it. I think that's a good thing. I think from what we saw, the impact on the economy and the population, what happened to Colonial was just an eye opener for that industry. And I think extra regulation should be for people who live in that or work in that space.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
No,
but I believe even the private industry should be held
if they
accountable if something happens.
If they have major impact on the economy or stuff like that, I think they should, yes. But a mom and pop shop that fills bottles of milk for a living.
No, yeah, I see what you're saying. Good point. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that, to be clear, I think that trying to classify mitigation efforts or whatever the regulations are as sensitive is stupid. I don't think the regulations are stupid, because I think that after a certain point, if you're getting reluctance and I agree with Pascal on that, it's not going to do any good to enforce regulations on mom and pop shop, right? But if you have a significant input, or if you have some sort of significant critical element to the economy, to the government, to the nation, or whatever that's classified as critical infrastructure, then I think that you should have a responsibility. And if you're not going to take that responsibility, then that responsibility is going to have to be enforced upon you, because it's not just you and your company and your customers or whatever. I mean, now you're talking about a large part of the economy or the nation or supply chain is relying upon you. That's why it's called critical infrastructure. So if you're not going to take the responsibility and do what's right, then you're going to have that imposed upon you. And I agree with that, but it has to be within a certain threshold. And I mean, that's like NERC CIP, right? So not everybody is bound by NERC CIP regulations. You have to have a certain amount of power generation on the grid, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what this is basically.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it a little bit further. I'm going to do a prediction that once we're done with these first initial 100, I'm gonna guess that the next round is going to be the companies feeding these 100. So the upstream and downstream companies, the supply chain for these companies are going to be next on the mandate, because we've seen that as well. Ransomware is the number one threat right now, but supply chain is a close second.
Well, that's what they're trying to solve with the S-bomb, right? So, and that's, again, really wasn't planned for this episode. And if you want to get into S-bomb, we can, but it's not something.
We'll do that at a different
time.
Different time.
So, all right. Anyway, just one question for you, Glenn, from a CISO perspective. Then, how do you view that? Or let's just say, how do you view regulations playing into that? Or how does that make a CISO's job easier or harder? Like, I know, and I guess it really depends on the perspective of the CISO and the organization you work for. I guess there's some CISOs are like, I don't want this imposed upon me. And some CISOs are like, thankfully, finally, I can get budget.
Yeah. Well, yeah, both of those are right. Yeah, it'll definitely drive security budgets, or at least separate security out of IT budgets into their own separate budget, which helps a lot. Now, there's another requirement around this, and you have to designate a cybersecurity coordinator. Okay, and what is that? Yeah. Well, that's somebody that provides the names and title, phone. It's somebody that runs the practices and procedures. It serves as a liaison between the company and the TSA and CISO, and the primary point of contact. So
not the CISO per se, more like just a liaison.
The things they're asking. It could be a director, or it could be somebody. Somebody at that level, VP maybe, something like that. But it's somebody that's going to be the primary point of contact on any cybersecurity related issues. And that's around information. Now, the thing is, they have to be available 24/7 to the TSA and CISO.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So if they call you 3 a.m,
you better pick up.
3 a.m, Glenn. What is 3 a.m.? We need you to report for a piss test.
Right.
No problem at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and you must obtain a security clearance. So
to get a piss
that'll be
test?
Interesting. Yes.
Well, no, you don't want to miss the call.
No, the coordinator has to have obtain a security clearance. I'm not sure which clearance it is, but those are the requirements as far as having a coordinator on the site. And also, I don't know if, say, myself, can you use a contract CISO or vCISO or CISO as a hire to do this work? I don't think it really says anything. I think the way I read it, it has to be a staff FTE type person.
Good luck finding one.
Yeah. They're not cheap, and a
and
lot of people are going to the vCISO route. I mean, because of that reason.
So it's going to end up the big companies with the big budgets are going to get the people.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's another.
So if the CISO is responsible for clicking on ransomware, is that a staph infection? Sorry, I got the dad jokes. All right, we got
the medicine for that.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. There's one thing, we got a few minutes left. There's one thing I want to get to real quick before moving on. Before ending the episode. So here's very recent news. So Clarity, OT cybersecurity monitoring technology, raised $140 million in a Series D. So here's one thing. Here are my thoughts on this, is that, number one, like, what does this really mean? Where are they going with this? Are they preparing for IPO? I think so. I think Dale Peterson predicted that they're probably preparing for IPO here, even though this was not listed as pre-IPO. But, I think also questions are, is this the result of the increase in, were they able to get this due to the increase in ransomware and Biden's 100-day plan executive order thing to call for increased monitoring? I think possibly, but what do you guys think about that? I got some other thoughts. But we'll try to keep this short since we're running out of time and there's some thoughts we want to get to. But what do you guys think? I
don't think we're seeing the results from Biden's directive on a company like this yet. Clarity has been doing a phenomenal job for a long time now. They're the industry leader. They're recognized as the go-to company for this kind of stuff. This is just a natural progression. people are more and more aware that they're not aware of what's going on their networks, and especially on the OT side. So a company like this is going to do good business. Period.
Yeah, totally agree. Yep.
So what about, here's one thing I thought was interesting. So, and I'm stealing a lot of this from Ron Fabella. I had a conversation earlier this week, last week. I don't know, the days blend together, but
No kidding.
Ron Fabella is a good friend of mine that is well aware of kind of what's going on in the threat monitoring space. And he had some comments that I agree with, and I'm repeating him, so I'm giving him credit. That when you first started this OT threat monitoring, we had all these vendors, and then they kind of ate each other like fish, and then went down. They all had their own specialties, right? So, Nozomi had one thing, Clarity had another, and some people focused on packet and deep packet inspection. Some people focused on playbooks. Some people focused on asset inventory, that kind of stuff. And so, but as time went on, they've all kind of grown into, they all have the same features, right? Now they specialize in different areas, and they specialize in different verticals, and then we have Indigi was acquired by Tenable, CyberX acquired by Microsoft. But ultimately, now what it comes down to is you have a bunch of different vendors, technology for specialized OT cybersecurity monitoring, which really now they're more like SIMs, right? I mean, because any when you look at them now, they're like specialized SIMs, but you're also starting to see these vendors making announcements about their partnerships with like Splunk and other enterprise caliber SIMs. And I think that plays into the fact that OT cybersecurity, OT risk does not exist in isolation, right? So you have IT threat vectors that affect the OT. And then also, I think a lot of companies, and this is for the Cisco thong. Anyway, this is where the CISO comments would come in that they don't want two SIMs. They don't want two SOCs. They want to consolidate their log transportation, their log monitoring, their log analysis, their threat analysis, their eyes on glass. So I think that's what's going on there. So what do you guys think about kind of that whole thing about it all becoming a SIM, and now it's all being consolidated, or at least having that data being pushed to enterprise SIMs?
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Pascal.
No,
Okay.
no. I because I'm not going to agree with what he just said. So you go first and make him happy first.
Okay.
Nothing makes me happy.
Well-
Y'all know this.
Yeah. So now you come down to the money, right? Budget, security budget, IT budget, resources. You don't want two SIMs. You don't want two MSSPs. You are watching two different things, but on the same network, more or less in the same business data. Because I think Pascal may disagree, but I think it's a good idea to have eyes on glass. But the issue is now you're going to have some OT specialists, analysts, engineers, whatever, watching that glass as well. Not just your typical SOC analyst who's great at their job, but it's more on the corporate side. But they'll have no idea. They don't know OT language, the protocols and everything else that's going through, or could see a breach and not recognize it compared to an OT guy that could. So, can you train one to do both? That's a training. Yeah, there you go. Training plug. Could you train one person to do the OT and the IT as far as an analyst? Possibly.
I'm going to let Pascal, you go, because I have a comment on that one to end this episode. But Pascal, what was your disagreements?
My disagreements is that Clarity and all of those are in no way a SIM. They're not aggregating logs from other devices.
Correct.
Most of the time they are passive detection tools. Take this. A lot of them are now doing active scanning as well, which is completely against what we originally sold them for. But that aside, they are not SIMs. They do, however, start to propel, or they start to work well with sending logs to SIMs, and those SIMs can be combined with IT logs and events. So you have one giant SIM sitting there, and then to comment on Glenn's comment, yeah, that's absolutely having eyes on glass. crossing the IT and the OT barrier. Let's call it ICS monitoring, right? Because an ICS lives on both sides of the equation. Having that capability is absolutely something that any company should invest in. And yeah, I think we can have analysts who sit there and detect the events, because a lot of these systems, the Clarities, the CyberX, the Forescout solutions, they do a great job at filtering a lot of this stuff out as well. With a good tuned sim, we can do some more filtering, and then you can have an analyst that says, okay, I'm more geared towards IT events and incidents. I'm specialized in that, so that's my forte. So I can do those firsthand. But on the OT side, I can detect it when I need to call the next person in line. So I know when to push it up. So you don't have to have a dedicated OT SOC analyst yet. I don't think we're there yet. But having an IT analyst that can detect the OT incidents as well would be a straven, would be a goal for a lot of companies.
So we're actually going a little over our time, but that's fine, because I have a couple more things I want to say. So number one, the comment about the SIM. These are from my notes from talking to other people and customers and things like that. And so maybe there's a point of advice right there for vendors to make sure that people are not just mistaking your interface for your technology, your product as a SIM, so that they don't get that misinterpretation.
I would call it an OT IDS. That's basically what it is.
But like I said, my point was that if people are getting the impression that it's an OT SIM, then they might want to make sure that they're not giving that impression to the uninformed, or specifically to the buyers, right? One last comment I want to make, and then we got to wrap this up, is you said that, you don't necessarily have to have the OT specialist eyes on glass. And that was so fortuitous, because the very last comment that I had in my notes today was basically, there's, I said, the need for specialized OT analysts, having eyes on glass is starting to shrink, but are we there yet? Or are more people in IT starting to understand OT? And that plays into exactly what you were just talking about, Pascal. I mean, I think that more people are starting to understand OT. And I don't think we're ever really going to I personally don't think we're ever going to need specialized OT eyes on glass in the SOCs, because the knowledge is starting to be converged. I think people, and the word converged, I know people hate that word. Screw you. There is convergence.
It's part of the game. Let me give a final note on that. Yeah, you're right. We're probably not going to get there anytime soon, but you do need to have a good follow-up person that knows OT security, either being it in-house or a vendor that you partner with, right? So once your IT or your SOC analyst, let's call him a SOC analyst, sees an OT,
your accent sounds like you're saying the SOC analysts. So I'm just
they suck. No, they don't. They're bailing out in a lot of. But you need to be able to push it up the ladder and say, okay, we found this ICS OT, whatever you want to call it, industrial event. Now we send it to our in-house guy who knows ICS security, or we've partnered up with a company and we're going to get them involved.
You'd also have to ramp up your incident response plan, right? To include ICS.
Yep.
So that's very important. And run tabletops
detection is nothing.
That type of environment. Yeah.
Spoken like a true CISO.
Yeah. Detection is nothing without being able to respond.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Exactly. With that,
we done?
Drop the ball. Drop the paper. So yeah, we have to wrap it up now. So Glenn Sweeney, CISO extraordinaire, thank you for joining us. Thank you once again, Pascal, for also joining us. Sorry I ran over everybody, but that's okay, because we're that good and you love us. So we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.